I started doing workshops and doing groups where I'm getting up in front of others, like outside of the gym setting, and talking about resilience and perseverance and goal setting and vision and taking action.
You should know what 1 hour of your time is worth. You should know the value that you bring to the marketplace. You know what your passion is.
Starts with clarity of vision. If you don't have the clarity of vision, whatever next thing you get, you're not going to see it through because you don't have the clarity of vision. So the point of my pain was being told you will never run or jump again. And all that stuff, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to be able to take this even bigger.
If you know why you do what you do, you have to know how to charge for what you do. That's how you're going to change your life, and that's how you're going to leave a legacy for your children and your family. You got to know your worth.
Happy Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rob, and I'm back with episode number 389 of Shut Up and Grind. We're all about overcoming obstacles, defying the odds, and inspiring you, the audience, to clear whatever's blocking the path to whatever success you want in this lifetime. So before I bring on my guest, you guys know I have to give my tip of the day. And today I want to talk about being vulnerable. Right? People get held back a lot out of a fear of judgment. People don't want to get up and they don't want to be authentic and they don't want to share their stories. They don't want to share their pain. And this show is dedicated to, I bring guests on from all over the world to talk about how life tried to break them and how they overcame those odds. So when you tell your story, when you share your story, there's somebody out there in the audience that's going to need to hear it like only you can say it. You know, so getting control of your inner stories. Like I wrote an entire book on how to do this because when the world shut down during COVID, I started joining mastermind groups. And as people would introduce themselves, like a lot of people couldn't even introduce themselves. Like there's people with multi 6 and 7 figure businesses that don't even know who they are at their core. You know, so when you can just own your past, own your failures, own your mistakes, own any failed relationships, just stand up and be you. Learn from those instances, make yourself a better person, and then go and do that thing that you really want to do. All right. So today's show, we're going to be talking about from immigrant underdog to authentic rebirth. I know that's super vague, but we're going to break it down for you. And helping me have this conversation is Polish Peter Kolat. I didn't ask him how to say his last name, but he's going to be coming in to help us out. So through his 7 human drives framework, Peter helps high achievers break unconscious patterns, reconnect with their authentic self, and build businesses that support their lives, not consume them. Peter, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm greatly appreciate it and love the intro that you got. You know, talk about being vulnerable, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that people avoid, and it's one of the most impactful things people can do.
Yeah, because people think that other people care more than they actually do. Yeah. It's like that. That's what people do. And most people, they have their own lives that they're dealing with. They might talk for, a couple minutes or so, and then they forgot about whatever it is that you thought you were so afraid of. But all right. So before we dive in, so you said you're out in Michigan.
Yes, I'm in Michigan. Yep.
Okay. So where were you born and raised?
So I was born in. This was back in the. I'm going to date myself. Back in the 70s. So this is the last century, long time ago, right?
The communist in the 70s. What are you saying?
Hey, you're looking good, man. You're looking good. So that's what matters, right? Feeling good, looking good.
Yes.
But yeah, I was born in the communist Poland in a city called Zakopane. And I grew up there until I was 14 years old. And when I was 14 years old, I came to the United States here with no English, just a little suitcase in my hand. And I got into Michigan, and I've been living here ever since.
Okay, awesome. So what was the difference between living in Poland and living here?
Well, one big difference is, I don't know how much you know about the whole communism. My experience of communism back then was very scarcity-based mindset, Like yes. We had, I remember looking in the fridge and we had maybe 2-3 eggs in the fridge. And
Wow.
most of the time I was spending time on myself because my mom had to get 2 jobs, and my dad at the time, he was kind of an alcoholic and he was never home, and so he was, who knows where he was. So I was spending time with myself as this 7, 8-year-old kid. And so it's very scarcity mindset. Never had enough or anything, so we had to hold on to as much stuff as possible. I remember I had like this brown box, and I had maybe 2 or 3 different toys. I had this little tank, like when in the military tank, the toy that kept driving this thing all over the place. So it's a very scarcity based mindset. When I came here, one of the things that so little backstory, when I was finally on the plane and I'm flying over here to United States, first time on a plane, they played 2 movies for me. Venture to guess what those 2 movies were? This was in 91.
Don't know.
No? Well, one of them was Coming to America with Eddie Murphy in it. I don't think that was by an accident. I think they did it on purpose a little bit, right?
Definitely.
The one was Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy, the one with you in Hollywood. Okay. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, well, you got beautiful skies, skyscrapers, palm trees. I've never seen a palm tree. Would love to see a palm tree. And now a 15-year-old kid, right? A boy, beautiful women. So I'm excited about this. And then I land in Detroit. And I'm like, okay, where's all that? But the one thing that I've noticed here, you go to the stores even, it was abundance of everything. Abundance of, there was abundance of people, right? I was from a small village, abundance of people, abundance of food, abundance of all kinds of different things. And I didn't know how to actually operate in that place at that particular time because it was kind of overwhelming. I didn't speak English either. So that was the one big difference that I've discovered between those 2 countries.
All right. Yeah. So I actually want to circle back on that. First, let's find out a little bit more about you. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I love the fact that you talk about, who you are and not supposed to what you do, right? Because I think a lot of what you do is to the outside and somebody can take that away from you, like it happened during COVID, right? Whereas something who you are is something within you. So the way I look at it from the perspective, I'm an extraordinary, bold leader. And I can show up with that in life, with people, with my kids, with my wife, with anybody in there. And I'm a contribution, right? Contribution to people, contribution to my family, to my kids, to anybody that I come in contact with. And by doing that, I leave them empowered to their own greatness. So if I step into this way of being, right, who I am, all of a sudden changes how I start showing up in people's life. And hopefully I can do the same here on this particular podcast with you.
Great answer. So as you see, it says up here, somewhere over here, empower, that word that you just used. So I was a guest on another podcast, and the person asked me, what's the difference between empower and inspire? Now, I'm going to give my answer, but I want you to give your take on it as well. I said inspiration can be temporary. It's like you can go watch a motivational video right on YouTube, leave that video feeling rah rah wow wow, but then sit down and watch TV. So that's like inspiration can come and go. When you're empowered, you get on the train tracks, baby. You are moving and you are ready to go. So I actually should have reversed the 2 and put inspire first. So get them inspired, get them empowered, ignite that flame, and then unleash the beast. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that because inspiration is almost looking from like it's a spark, right? But spark only lasts a little tiny bit. The empowered is literally, I think, shifting the way they look at themselves, shift how people see themselves, right? And when you empower them and you shift their identity or shift the way they look at themselves, now they're empowered to take on life in a different way. So it's almost like going from a spark going to this fuel that can last you for a very long period of time. In fact, can last you for a lifetime if you're empowered. Like you step into this way of being that I just talked about when you're empowered to lead people to their greatness, and it changes how you start to show up and operate in life.
Yeah, exactly. So being an immigrant who was in a place of scarcity, right? You come to America and you see the abundance that's here. But I'm sure you have ears that work because the scarcity mindset runs rampant here as well. So how do you feel about that?
Well, so the ears, that was the conversation I had in my head. All right. So I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, what I think has happened for me back then is I started questioning my belief system at that particular time, because like this was one of the first times when I came in and I start seeing like the so much stuff, right? Like you go to the store and you have 20 different cereal boxes, right? And
Yeah.
you can pick with like 20 different cereal boxes. And I'm back in Poland when I was little. Actually, I have a picture of when I was little back then, because now Poland, in full, a full disclosure, Poland is a 21st century country. It's amazing. It's abundance is all over the place over there. But back then it was very scarcity. So we went to the store, sometimes was nothing on the shelf, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things that had me do is start questioning whether or not these beliefs that have been told that I've learned are actually true. And then for a period of time, I think it was kind of like nerve wracking, because I'm like, well, what do I do with this? How do I do this? Right. But then I started growing and started learning a language. And I started learning different, meanings about the words in the English language. I started seeing there was more to life than just this lack. You know what I mean? I started playing soccer on the team, and I ended up being in the varsity team for 4 years. So now I started connecting with different people, and I see more friends and the more friends. So every single thing that I was looking from the perspective of how do I shift this thinking to be more of this abundant as opposed to scarce kind of way of living. You know what I mean? Because I think, later on in life, I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is, but
Of
Tony Robbins
course.
has a very famous line, which I started looking from very long time ago, is like, where focus goes, energy flows, right? What does that mean? What that means that where you focus, what you look at, where you putting all your energy towards, that's what you're going to get. I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff about it, but it's changes how you view life. And when that changes, guess what? Your life starts showing up differently for you.
See, and where people go wrong is they wait for life to change
Right.
and not realizing life isn't going to change for you. You have to shift your own perspective. On yesterday's episode, I was telling a story where I was like, this was maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I broke free from societal expectations and I started just setting personal boundaries. And once I did that, it's like I don't want to say there's no stress in my life, because everybody's things pop up, like I had a flat tire in a snowstorm the other day, so that was 4 hours of my life I'll never get back dealing with that. But just overall, my overall perspective on life is like there's no such thing as a bad day unless you're about to die. So it's like no matter what it is you're going through. Okay, so I lost 4 hours driving in a snowstorm to get my tire fixed. That's not a bad day. It's like, really? So once I started shifting my perspective and just realizing how much good is out there in the world. Now, do bad things happen? Yes. Do bad people exist? Yes. But if you focus on the good and you focus on the abundance, you start to, over time, you'll have that mindset shift to get out of that scarcity and then get on that path to what you want for success. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think that's a great example, because think about it this way. Like, one of the beliefs that I embodied for a very long time when I started going this journey is the belief of everything happens for me. Like, everything happens for me. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And the thing is, it was very difficult for me to start looking from the perspective, but I started, if you think about it, every single belief that we have in some shape or form is made up in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Because, when you were little, something happened and there was a little seed planted because you said something to yourself or somebody in your life said something to you, and now you blindly decided that that is the truth. Whether or not that is the truth is kind of, if you start to literally look at it, inspect it, it's not really the truth. So I started looking from the perspective of everything happens for me. And when I was going through these things, through these different times, what ended up happening, I started seeing, well, how can this be happening for me? Like looking to actually be like a detective to see it. Like, for instance, in your case, that flat tire in the middle of winter time, guess what? May have avoided, and I don't know this for whether that's true or not for a fact, but you may have avoided a huge accident in a mile up the road. But because of the flat tire, you didn't do that, right? So we don't know that, but when you start looking from that perspective, that shifts how you see life. And I can give you example upon example upon example. Like something happened when I was 8 years old. Like people who read my book, because I wrote the book too, they talk about the frying pan incident I had when I was 8. I know, truly believe that happened for me.
Yes.
When I came here to the United States, by the way, in full transparency, I did not want to come here to the United States when I was 14 years old, because that time my life was pretty good. But guess what? If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. So everything happens for me. Now I'm grateful for the fact, because this is the land of opportunity. And today, on February 11th, 2026, United States is a land of opportunity. You just got to look for it.
So when you hear, especially on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now,
Yeah.
where they talk about there's no opportunities, like does that grind your gears?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Because think about it this way. The thing is, I think what happens with people is that there is so much, I call them squirrels out there, right? If you think about, like in Michigan, we got squirrels everywhere. You just look outside, and during like summer or spring or fall, they are everywhere, running all over the place. So what ends up happening is gets people distracted that way. And the social media and the world, the way it's, the instant gratification, it's so created about look here, look here, look here, look here, look here, that they don't actually focus on finding that opportunity because they're constantly being distracted. So I think that's one of those things that preventing people from finding the opportunity. But if you mentioned earlier about, how we look in life, a lot of times it's about comparing. We compare constantly. Because if you look at like, I got a flat tire, I'm using you because you brought this up, but this can happen to anybody. And you compare it to this person in the middle of, let's say, Nigeria, that's living in the middle of nowhere, who doesn't even have a running water, and they don't have a food on the table at all. They haven't eaten in 4 days. Now the perspective changes, right? So the point of making is, like, I think a lot of the distractions that are happening in the world is actually preventing people from seeing that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. There's a video out. It's obviously it's satire, but it's got this big tree, and it's just got $100 bills hanging off of it.
Yeah.
And it's got people like walking, staring on their phones with their headphones on. Everybody just walking underneath this tree, right? The opportunity is right there, right? There's nothing stopping you from grabbing the money, but people are reading the newspapers. They're on their iPads and walking right. And there's a handful of people that look up and like, oh, and they grab it. And such is life. And I was there myself. In the corporate, trying to work my way up the ladder, thinking that this was my only option. Like, I don't have this and that, so I can't start my own business, or I can't make myself wealthy. Like, I'm going to have to work 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. And that is so far from the truth, especially now in 2026. There's a woman who teaches people, I interviewed her on the show. There's a woman who teaches people how to make money on Amazon. And when I interviewed her, this was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, she was celebrating her first $2 million week. Not year, not months, week. $2 million week, because she stopped to look at the opportunity and then jumped on it.
Yeah, I love those kinds of examples, those kinds of stories, because, it shows that we regular, everyday people can find those opportunities if you look for them. It's funny you mentioned that money tree, right? When I came here to United States back in the day, growing up, the idea of the United States for me in my head, my little head, was that money grows on trees in the United States. And I came here and I'm like, where are the money trees? Like, I couldn't find a money tree. Like, I thought there was actually a money tree out there. But what shifted for me is the idea that money does grow on trees here. If like you just said in that example, look up and see it. I've met one time, a long time ago, this was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, this guy who was selling, he was making a living, he was making a business on, ready for this? People would order messages that they would send to their loved ones, or as a joke, or somebody else, that he would carve out on a real potato. He would get the potato out of the ground, he would cook whatever, and he would write a message and mail it to somebody. And that's how he was making money. So you think that, look at Chia Head. Remember Chia Head? What was the purpose of that thing? What was the purpose of that thing? and became like a multi, I don't know how many millions they made on that, right? So if you look
Yep.
for an opportunity, actually keep going forward with it, because most people jump ship constantly, and that's why they're not able to,
Yes.
end up with it. So if you just go it, you might be surprised what you come up with.
I have another layer to add to that. So one of my mentors, this guy, his name is Billy Jean Shaw. Like he's like one of the top marketers in the world. And so I've been in his programs now for a few years, but just to prove the power of marketing, he's like, I'm gonna make a nothing product, right? And he created a box, decorated it up. You opened it up, it said nothing in it, because he said, how many people do you ask, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? What do you want for, and they respond with nothing.
Nothing.
He's like, now you can get them a box of nothing. I think he charged like $40 for it, and his goal was to make $1 million selling nothing, and he did it. He did
That
it.
is
He's like,
so
that's
funny.
the power of marketing and messaging. Like
That is
insane.
so funny. That's crazy. It's funny. Like years ago, we had an event in Colorado. So after the event, we went skiing, right? And right before we went up on the ski to go up in the mountains, we stopped at local Walmart. And I walk up to this was the news to me. I walk up to one of the shelves, and it says there was a bottle and they sell oxygen in it. I'm like, hold on a second here. You're selling me oxygen? Like, what? That doesn't compute for me, right? But when you're really high up in the mountains, right, the air is really thin, you have to have oxygen. Literally, they bottle up oxygen and they sold it to you in a store. Go figure, right? I mean,
That's insane.
It's crazy.
I mean, so we were both born in the 70s, right? So we're old enough to remember when air was free. Like if you needed air in your tires, you could just roll up to the thing and just fill it up. When water was free, when drinking out of the garden hose was fine. Now it's like they invent bottled water, so now drinking out of the hose is dangerous. It's like they just, and by they, I mean, I always say it's the billionaires run the world. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are, the billionaires they get the governments to put in whatever they need to where they can make the most money. Like that's how politics works. No matter where you are, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, because they're playing the same game. And the point, going back to what you were saying about distractions, that's where the distractions come from. Because yes, we're in America, it's a capitalist society, but if everybody used capitalism, the billionaires have no workers. Right? Just think about that. Right? So to illustrate that, when I spoke at a career fair, and I was asking the kids about the life cycle of a human being, and they're like, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you retire, and you die. This is middle school kids, and they already have that programmed into their mind. Yep. So that's why capitalism gets such a bad rap, because they think that these people are just going to milk the smaller people. Like the smaller people can do it. They just haven't broken free from the societal expectations. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really powerful conversation. Now, when we do our events, we talk about a similar kind of a conversation. Like, think about it this way. You get out of college, you got college debt, right? And then you get yourself a house, so you get that. Then you buy a car and picket fence, 2.5 kids, a dog and a cat, or whatever it might be, right? And by the time you're in your mid-30s, you have $300,000-$400,000 in debt or more. And then for the next 20 years, until you're about maybe in 60s, when you're about to retire, then you finally, hopefully, pay off that debt and you go retire, right? And I think that structure is kind of something needs to shift, especially with the advancement of what's going on in technology and AI, right?
Yes.
So because AI is going to transform a lot of this conversation. In fact, like I read an article today in the morning about the latest release of the AI they just came out with. It can literally start working, replicating itself in a way. So it's a crazy time that we're going after here. So that's
yes,
a conversation, right? But what ends up happening, there's a lot of beliefs that we have to let go of. You start like, I remember thinking that rich people are greedy. I remember thinking that rich people are bad because I was growing up in Poland. But then, you talked about the people at the top, right? Because in Poland, there was few people at the top who were good. Everybody else was poor. So rich people are bad, rich people are greedy. Now, I came here and started my own company or whatever. Am I ever going to be rich if I believe that? Well, no, because I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to be bad, right? I don't want to be, a bad person. So I need to shift that belief. So the listeners, I would encourage you to examine that what the beliefs are that are running your life that may be preventing you from seeing those opportunities, from seeing what you want to get to in life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I used to have that same thought myself, but then you start thinking like the CEO of Marlboro is worth like $600 million, and all he does is get people addicted to his product, which is responsible for, I think it's like 8 or 9 of like the 15 or 16 cancers out there, like directly responsible from smoking. So how come this person can enrich himself, but I can't enrich myself helping people? Because like people, anytime you're in any public forum live, there's always trolls, right? There's always trolls. There's
Mhm.
like, oh, you should just be a good person and help people for free. And I was like, well, how come they can help from harming people? How come I can't get paid helping people? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. But what are your thoughts?
Well, one of the things, because I'm a coach, both business and life, and a lot of our conversation with different people. And I'll tell you this: I've done in the past when I've helped someone for free, and what has happened is the people, and I'm not knocking anybody down here because I think some people are go-getters, okay, and sometimes they just need someone to kind of step up for them in that particular time if they have a really hard time in life. But for the majority of the cases, the people who are getting for help for free, they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And I think where there is money behind it, when they actually need to put something, like in pay for the coaching or pay for whatever the course is, whatever. How many times do we downloaded a PDF for free from somewhere and it's sitting on your computer and you've never actually read it? Right?
Guilty.
Right? It happens all the time,
Yep.
right? But when you have to
Yep.
pay, think about it this way: if you for that same PDF you had to pay $1,000 for that PDF, would you put it or would you read it? It changes the
Yeah.
perspective, right? So,
So true.
and you probably take action on it, what it says in there. So it makes the difference. And when you start shifting your belief system, I think that's when you start to grow. Because I had to do a lot of that throughout life.
Yeah, I actually this is the first week of a program that I just joined. $2,000. It's gonna completely help me build out my speaker business, because I was trying to do it all myself. Like you try to save money, and like you were saying with AI, like AI can do a lot of things now. It can make up high resolution photos and all this other stuff. So just trying to skip the steps. But then I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? Let me just I did their free. It was like a free 3-day thing. I upgraded to VIP so I could ask questions and get extra perks to join. And then it just made sense. It's like trying to do everything myself. Like, why? It's like, yes, I have a good sized platform, but nothing like hers. The woman who's running the program, like she's got millions and millions in her platform. So if I give her some money, then I'll get some access to her resources. So like it's a win-win. So why would I not do that? At the end of the day, I mean, it's $2,000, and yes, that this first week I've been very dialed in. It's like I'm not going to miss anything in that, because I probably have 50 different PDFs on my hard drive that I've never looked at. It's like
Yeah.
I'm definitely that guy. But the things that I pay for, I see them all the way through.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's awesome. Because here's the thing: the other thing
You.
that people don't realize is you're not just paying for the information or the resources or whatever. You're paying for access. You're paying for the who's.
Yes.
And I can give you a bunch of different examples of how, because of the who's, it has helped me level up in life. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I've interviewed, because I have my own podcast with a partner called Life on Our Show, and we had someone like, I don't know, Profit First, Mike Mihalovic. I don't know if you ever heard of that guy. He was on a podcast.
Yes.
I had the guy author who wrote the Go Giver books and all kinds of different things. So looking from that perspective of connecting with these people, right? In fact, when I released my book last year, it was about connecting with the who's that helped me make this book international bestseller. Without that access, we're putting into this, over the years, and having those kinds of conversations and being them for these people, right? How can I support you, kind of a thing. And getting that access, I would not be able to get to that. So I think it's a really important for us to step up and get a mentor, get a coach, connect with the community that's going to level you up, right? That's going to help you get grow, and it makes a big difference in life.
See, a big problem here in the States is that people prioritize entertainment over education, right?
Yeah,
That's
Super
what they
Bowl,
prioritize.
yeah,
Yes.
watching Super Bowl on Sunday. Yeah, I get it. So
Yep. Like, or even going to the Super Bowl at $7,000 to $10,000 a pop, but then people won't want to pay me $2,000 for my services because that can literally change their life. Like going through the program will change how you are as a speaker, as a connector, and an understander. You know, like those are skills that you're gonna take with you until your time is up on this earth. And people are like, nah, that's too much. But then you'll see them check in on Facebook on this top of the line cruise. You know what I mean? It's like you'll shell out thousands to go have fun for a week, but you can't level up yourself with these lifelong skills. So I want to shift to your business. So what is it that you do?
So I call myself a human architect, and the reason for that is I used to be an actual architect. I developed a lot of buildings and things like that. So building something from ground up, and it was a lot of looking from blueprints and creating blueprints, processes, and things to help grow that building. Today, I get to do this with people. So one of the things that I do is not only first we start looking at the life. So I'm like a human architect coach, a mentor kind of a thing, to be able to help you figure out what you want your life to look like and how do we how do we create a business that supports that life. So everything I do around that is to help people live the life that they truly want and then create a business that supports that life. Because back in the day, in early 2000s, I started my company and I was working 90, 100 hours a week because I had a business plan, didn't have a life plan. And guess what took over my entire life, right? And that came with a lot of consequences, a lot of things. Today, I work about 15, 20 hours a week in my business, and I have the wife, kids, and I am able to go and have a business that supports my life. So that's what I did last year. I wrote a book called Authentic Self Rebirth that actually helps people get back to their authenticity, because when you get to do that, being in your authentic self, growing that life, growing that business becomes a lot simpler. It's almost like you're not grinding so much. You're more like you feel like you're working from what you're truly made to be on this earth for, kind of thing. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say very similar, just different wording to reverse engineer it. Yeah, reverse engineer it. Start with, like, I'll give an example. When my daughter was getting ready to go to college, I said to her, I need you to write down all the things that make you happy. I said, write down everything you can think of. I was like, now, out of those, which ones could you see yourself? I said, circle 3 that you would like to see turn into a business. I said, now, who would you want to help achieve these things that would make you happy? Then I said, now we find a program that can get you those 3 things, right? So, I mean, so that was to pick a career, but it's the same thing in business. I love that you said that, like, what life do you want? Because 3 years ago, I lost everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna create something that to where this will never happen again. So, like, if we have another pandemic, or if I have get with another business partner or something, like, I'm gonna create something that cannot be taken from me. And I worked like a dog. Like, I know the name of their show is Shut Up and Grind, but like, it's not grind until you die, right? It's shut up and grind till you get what you want, right? And so I'm gonna build this thing out in the next 8 weeks. And then my goal is very similar to yours. I said I want to work like 20 to 25 hours a week and then chill the rest of the week and just enjoy life.
Yeah, enjoy life and family and things like that. Yeah. And you know what? Once you start to, because here's the thing, I think what happens a lot of times, and I did this myself too, when you don't have that vision, that GPS that you're going after, right? Imagine, think about this one. When you have a GPS, when you're on your iPhone, what's the first thing that it needs? The GPS needs your exact location where you're at, right? Second thing it needs, where you're going. And most of us don't really have a very clear plan of where we're going. And then what ends up happening, once you have those 2 things on your GPS, you hit start, you hit go on there, and it starts to map out your direction. and it only maps out what 500 feet in front of you. And then as the journey goes, and let's say there is an accident on that freeway that you were supposed to take, guess what? It redirects you, right? But what ends up happening, we typically in life, since we don't have a clear direction where we're going, we constantly make decisions and choices in our life based on our current circumstances. And that's why a lot of times we have a hard time growing, because we kind of go linear, kind of horizontally, maybe a little bit further, but then something happens, like you get a job offer, you're living in Michigan, get a job offer in Texas, and it gives you $20,000 more. So guess what? You go, okay, I'm moving to Texas. And now you moved away from your family and you're wondering, okay, that was important to me, and now that's not good, So when you have this vision that you're going after life, how you support that business, how you create a business supports it, it changes the whole entire game show.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like when we started this, remember I told you backstage that a lot of people can't answer that question, who are you at your core? Right. And that's why a lot of people don't know what they want, because they've forgotten who they were. Because somewhere along the lines in life, they attach their identity and their values to their career.
Yep.
Right. That's why so many people get burnt out in their jobs. That's why they stop caring, because they ended up attaching themselves to something that can drop you in a second. Right? Like if corporate has to downsize, they will drop you in a second. But like with this platform here, it's like I have recordings of all of these videos. Like if Facebook shuts down or if YouTube shuts down, I still have all of my content. It's like I can keep my stuff. Like I'm building something that's gonna survive way longer than myself, and it's gonna give me the lifestyle that I can then pass on to my kids.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think that's what we see a lot of times when people, working the job or whatever for 20, 30 years, and then they retire, and 6 months after that, they're lost and they're, depressed, because their identity basically was taken away with that retirement and went away. So I think it's really important to figure out who you are deep down in here.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's paramount. That is absolutely paramount. Because it goes back to what you just said with the GPS, which is wild, because what you shared with the GPS, that's part of one of my keynote speeches. That same
Very
thing.
cool,
So
awesome.
that's awesome.
All right.
See, but what you said about if a road is closed, meaning when obstacles come up in life, people make rash decisions. But when you're dialed in, okay, this happened, go like me in the tire in the snow. So okay, this happened. Let's just get this done and get right back on course. Right. Whereas people hit adversity and they use that as a reason to quit, to procrastinate, whatever it is, But it's like when your vision is solid, like I said it in my intro video, if you don't have the clarity of vision, you're never gonna get that next best thing.
Exactly right, and then it helps you deal with life in a completely different way. You didn't get upset as much. You don't get rattled by life out there. You know what I mean? Because you know what you're doing, what you're going after, and it helps you tremendously. And not only in your own life, but in relationships in your life. The people that are most important to you.
Yeah. So what does the saying mental resilience mean to you?
Mental resilience. I would say that means not allow the outside world to affect you. Meaning, like the way I started looking, like, remember I mentioned earlier in the podcast, everything happens for me, right?
Yes.
When I believe that, it doesn't matter what happens out there. It only matters like how I react. When I start looking from the perspective of everything happens for me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, now my response will be a little bit different than what would be back in the day, like 10, 20 years ago. And when you start looking from the perspective, it looks like you have mental resilience, but you have more peace. You're present in life. You're more intentional in life. Because a lot of times when people like this idea of, why is this happening to me, right? If you start thinking about, why is this happening to me? Like, in fact, in my book, I wrote, at the beginning of the book, that back in the day, in 2011, 12, I had this question, that's unanswered question that I kept asking myself. And that was, what the hell is wrong with me? So that was very outside of, me kind of a thing, right? Because I get a whole bunch of different answers of what's wrong with me, right? Because your brain is really good at giving you the answers. Guess where the
Yes.
answers are coming from? It's coming from the past, or it's coming from somebody else out there. And it gives you all kinds of reasons. Well, because you're Polish, because you have an accent, because you're stupid, because you whatever it might be, right? And what
Yeah.
ends up happening is it disempowers you. But when everything is happening for me, then you start looking, okay, so this particular situation, this ugly thing, how could that be happening for me? And maybe I might not see it right now in this very moment, but in the future, I will see it. So now, just if that's the case, then guess what? I can respond differently. I'm coming more from the place of peace and intentionality as opposed to this fight or flight mode or freezing or not doing anything. I hope that makes sense.
Love it. We might have to collaborate down the line because our approaches are very, very similar. So in my book, guess what chapter 1 is titled?
What is
There is nothing wrong with you.
that's
That's
exactly
that's the very first chapter. It's like there's nothing wrong with you. You just need direction. Like
Yep.
people don't have direction, they self-destruct. You know, like when I first got into the speaking game, I went to talk to a speaker coach, and she's like, if you show up to speak in a tank top, you're not going to be taken seriously. And I was like, but you also believe in authenticity, right? And she's like, well, yeah. I said, okay, so I'm a fitness coach and an athlete, right? It's like I don't walk around 5 days a week in a suit and tie. I was like, so how am I being my authentic self if I show up like that? And I was actually speaking on a virtual panel. This is back in September, and I had a meeting with the host a couple of days prior. And so she's like, you know, I love everything you're saying, and you know, I think you're gonna be great for the panel. She's like, but I suggest, you know, you dress a little more professional, right? And I said, absolutely. I said, but whose profession are we going by? I said, because in my profession, this is what I wear every day.
yeah.
You know, I said, this is me. So like this panel is about authenticity. I said, so I should be able to come dressed as my profession. And she had no answers for that. So she was
Yeah.
like, okay, all right, come as you are. And not saying this to try to flex, but I delivered way more than the other panelists. You know, so it's like you can't judge the book by its cover. You know,
Right.
like if you would not book me because of that, you're doing your audience a disservice.
Yeah. You know what? Funny that you brought that up too, because like I had this thing when it comes to my accent. I hated my accent long time. And it preventing me from all kinds of different things, preventing me for being on stage, preventing me for speaking, preventing me from doing anything in life. In fact, I would get agitated and angry and whatever, frustrated that I would get on a call with, let's say, cable company to solve my bill, my cable bill. And so that was very inauthentic for me because guess what? I came here, learned English at 14, and up until 14 years old, I didn't know I had an accent because I didn't speak any other language. Right? But well, I did kind of learn Russian, but there was no context in for me to figure this part, right? But the point I'm making is that when I finally learned the language and I noticed I have an accent, well, guess what? Me trying to get rid of it was kind of inauthentic because I was trying to change something that I'm not. And what ended up happening once I accepted it, that this is who I am, and start getting curious and start looking from the perspective, you know what? Maybe because of my accent, people will be listening to more curiously because I'm going to have to level up in more than what I'm saying that makes an impact, becomes curiously listening to them. I'm being curious listening to them. I'm providing a great value to them. So they'll listen to me more, curiously. I'm going to show up differently. In fact, when I do events, because I didn't do any events at the time, when I do events, women are going to come up to me and say they love my accent. They're sexy. I had no proof about that, right? And then guess what? We started doing events, and that actually happened. People would come up to me and tell me about my accent and say, we love your accent, keep it. I'm like, yeah, this is part of who I am. So guess what? The weakness that I had back then that I thought I did, now I shifted it to something that's my strength. And now we've done over 100 events around the country.
Nice.
And guess what? And it's still good.
That's awesome. I worked with a college student a few years ago. Like his mom, who's a clinical psychologist, somebody with a PhD, hired me, who is a college dropout, to work with her son. Right? So he has dyslexia, and he was using that as a crutch of why he couldn't get things, why he couldn't get hired, why he couldn't get internships. So the first few sessions I had with him, I kept telling him, "You're not dyslexic." I said, "You have dyslexia. That's different." Going back to what we were saying about putting your identity into something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your identity, like dyslexia is not your identity. I'm like, you're a human being with hopes, dreams, and wishes who happens to have dyslexia. I said, so once I got him to buy into that, then like I looked into his resume. His resume was terrible. So we rewrote it, and I just helped him interview. I helped him sell himself. And then within, I want to say this was in less than 2 months, because his goal was he's a freelance writer. Mm-hmm. And his goal was to go into like weird, unique jobs, study them for a couple weeks, and write articles about it, which sounds great, right? Yeah. And so within 2 months, he ended up getting 2 of those gigs. He got 2 internships first, and then he moved back to Colorado. He was down in Florida, and then now he's living that dream that he wanted. But we had to remove that identity obstacle. Because he said, I can't do this because I'm dyslexic. I can't have that because I'm dyslexic. It's like, that's not it. That would be like me saying, I'll never have opportunities because I'm brown skinned. Like, that's just foolish. That's foolish. You get out there, you figure out what you want to get, and you work like hell. If somebody tells me no, then you move on. There's billions of people on the planet. Like, I don't need everybody's approval. And a lot of people have to understand that fact.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard of any Polish jokes, but there is millions of them. Okay.
Yes, there are.
They all go around the fact that Polish people are stupid. So if I bought into that, guess what? I would not be here. So
exactly. So true. So true. All right. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to throw in before we start to break it down?
No, I think we had a really good conversation, man. I appreciate it. I think one of the things that people, I think one of the big secrets that people don't look at is being intentional and being present in life. If you just put those 2 things in place, irregardless of what's going on out there, it's going to shift how you are operating in life. Because I think there's so many things out there that are designed to get you distracted, to get you not being intentional, to get you not being present. And if you're just being present in that very moment with whatever you have in front of you right then and there, whether it's a person or a thing that you have going on, it's going to shift how you are operating in life a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that the intentionality is everything, because most people are just coasting day to day. Like, It's like they're not really working towards anything. They're only surviving each day. Like, so I mentioned I lost everything 3 years ago. And when I tell you, I was working like 80 to 90 hours a week. Like, I was like, I'm going to make certain that this never happens to me again. Mm-hmm. Now, my plan isn't to do that forever, right? My plan was to dig out of the hole, rebuild my credit, had to get a car again, had to be able to provide for myself again, and all while creating this speaking program. So it's like, there were days I would get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't go to bed until after 10 p.m., for like five days a week, and then another anywhere from 12 to 15 on Saturday, and another 8 to 10 on Sunday. So it's like, I said, entertainment can wait. I said, I'm going to build this thing that's going to impact people, that's going to set me up and my kids up financially. And that was why I was working that hard. Like, a lot of people do work long hours, 60, 65, 70 hours a week. But for what? They're only working to get the paycheck on Friday. Like, they're not trying to build a life. It's something that they can leave behind. So I know you got to get out of here shortly, so I want to throw it to you. I mean, feel free to comment on what I just said, but I want to throw it to you for some final words, and then let people know where they can get in touch with you.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's about, I think a lot of things is being intentional. And I mean, I work in the intentional hours of the day. So between 10 and 3:30 is my work hours, kind of a thing, my business. And I work like my hair's on fire. You know what I mean? So it's very intentional. Like, obviously I still have hair, so that's good, right? No pun intended, kind of a thing, right? But the point I'm making is like intentionality makes a big difference. So, yeah.
Yes. Love it. So I do panels. If you're interested in coming back and being on one of the panels, I usually invite I invite 6. So this particular one, 4 of them came, but I invite 6, and we pick one topic. So that one was embracing vulnerability, but we pick one topic, and all of us round table that one topic. And like before we go live, all the panelists are like, what if we all give the same answers? I'm like, I've done enough of these to know that you're not gonna. Everybody has a unique perspective. And so if you're interested in coming back for one of those, let me know. I'm probably going to do one within the next 3 weeks. And
sounds
so
good, man.
I usually get the panelists first, and then I pick the topic, just so I know I can pick something that everybody is well versed in.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds good.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming. Did you say where people could find you? Even though I'm going to have all your links in the show notes, but go ahead.
Yeah, they can find me on IG. I have a channel called Authentic Self Rebirth. That's the channel. And if they want to find my book, it's called Authentic Self Rebirth, and they can find it at myauthenticrebirth.com, and they can get a copy over there and anywhere the book is sold. So
love it.
You just look up Polish Peter and you find me anywhere.
I love it. This was a fabulous conversation. Yeah, I'll definitely have you back on, and I want to keep in touch in general, like I said, because I think our messages and our approaches are very aligned.
Yep.
So that's great. All right, sir. So you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Take care.
You've been listening to Shut Up and Grind. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. Robert has over 20 years experience pouring his knowledge and expertise at many events in the service and fitness industry, as well as secondary schools and universities. He has a true passion for helping others break through the barriers that are holding them back. To book Robert B. Foster to speak or to reach out, go to robertbfoster.com. Till next time, shut up and grind.